So as you sit shoulder to shoulder in this small space together and feel the connection of family and the blessings of this family. So take another breath in about that with me. And isn't that nice? And what a beautiful opportunity to sit shoulder to shoulder and heart to heart. To all together have our feet planted on our beautiful Gaia in this magical place, in the crystal beds and the water of Berkeley Springs, and the heart and the soul of this land and the people here, and the energy that brought us all together today. So just let yourself feel more deeply into that, out of your head and into your body, and the energy that the facts carry, the energy that interests you is what draws you here. And if you didn't know what you were coming for today, perhaps these days following will unfold that for you as you learn more about your intuitive voice. And as you experience more synchronicities that lead you to more love and more family and more opening in the heart, in the soul, and in the hands of spirit. So as we welcome the information and the guidance of the Kryon energy, we also express gratitude from the deepest parts of ourselves, welling up through us, through our feet, through Gaia, out through the top of our heads, connecting us to that beautiful, loving, cosmic vibration that we share.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. This communication, the channeling of today, will be a little different. The difference is that you need to hear an overview. I'm going to call it the overview of the future, and yet the very term future is elusive. It's not about the future that is immediate, it's about the future of the planet. This is the kind of channel that my partner has trouble with, because the things that are delivered outside of the purview of his three-dimensional brain. He receives these kinds of messages sometimes in duplicate and triplicate. At the same time he's talking to you, he gets other messages so he can enhance it. This is the best we can do to give a multi-dimensional message to a three-dimensional brain. And so he struggles sometimes. And if it takes place, he'll simply back up and give it again. It's the kind of message that you wish to review and listen to again. It's the kind of message that you might put in a time capsule. The kind that is a human time capsule, so that you might open it and understand it more fully when things have changed. It's not going to be a long channel, but it's going to be one filled with information of the kind that we not necessarily have given before. Pieces and parts of it have been alluded to. We want to paint a picture of a bigger picture. My partner talks about the shift, I talk about the shift. My partner is giving lectures on what is next, but his lectures are the pablum to what is next. But He gives it to a humanity that goes step by step and only begins to move into new areas of understanding as they examine the old ones and try to decipher what could be different. And it's slow. But that's where it begins. And if I could, I would preface all of this by telling you that what is going on Earth at this moment, we have seen before. Dear ones, if you could compare the galaxy and all of the planets that have gone through this before as a school, this would be the graduation of the first step. And as we have looked at what has taken place in this galaxy with others before you, we know what's coming. Because the steps that are next for you are the same steps that were taken before. What you describe as human consciousness isn't. It's consciousness. It only belongs to the human because you're human. It's the same kind of thing. Energy. The attributes and the confluences of the energies are almost identical. That the consciousness that the other planets have gone through. And the reason is because life is similar. Some almost identical from planet to planet to planet, because the galaxy is made up of fractals. From the smallest to the largest, you're going to see repetitive parts of the same thing. It's a beautiful system. And what it means is it gives rise on other planets. One, perhaps right now, that's just getting life, the building blocks of DNA, getting ready to be seeded by you in the future. DNA. Same kind as you have. The same amino acid structures as you have is common to all. So we've seen this before. You're a young civilization, dear one. A young. So young it's hard to even give you a perspective of how young. Your civilization hasn't even been around the galaxy one time yet. Hardly. The almost 200 million years that it takes to go around one time, one rev. There are societies and civilizations that have been around 3 revs. The Pleiadians, half a rev. To tell you how old some life is in this galaxy, way before you. Some of them visit you. None of them are able to influence you to the degree that you can influence yourselves. Galaxy teems with life. And you're well hidden, by the way. We've seen this before. I want to tell you a bigger picture. Your youth and how young you are starts to explain why the earth has been through such a horrendous time. Civilization looks ugly to you. Your past and your history filled with survival and killing, weaponry, mass destruction, no elegance of thought for life, torture. They all went through that. They all did. Because civilization builds itself as your children build themselves as a metaphor through life. There comes a time, and we've said it before, where a child becomes self-aware and the ego takes over and all they think of is themselves and survival. On the playground at school, some of them become bullies. just to survive. Some of them never get over it. And they're bullies as adults because they never moved into the elegance of the wisdom that you have. As you grow up, there becomes a knowledge and a wisdom that occurs to you that there's a better way to solve problems through listening and cooperation. You have to survive. But the children don't know that. And they will flail, and generation after generation, you bring up children and they'll do the same thing, and they'll go through the terrible 2s and the thrashing 3s and the teenage years, and it's over, and hopefully they'll grow up. And if I could be so simplistic to apply this to human civilization, let me do it. You're still on the playground. You're still pushing each other around. You're still getting reactions. You're still in survival. Until about 20 years ago, 30 years ago, even 50, where it started to shift just a little. We have told you over and over, I'm not going to visit it again, what the timetable was, what the calendar said, why I'm here. No, I want to go further than that in this particular channel. I want to talk to you about energy not seen. We're going to talk about this in 2 places in this channel, and this is the first. Energy not seen. There is a complement of energy in the galaxy that interests you, and you can't see it. But you want to. Because it touches you in ways that are fascinating. This unseen energy is responsible for what the New Agers sense first. You're able to pick up energy in someone's aura somehow, some way. A medical intuitive can actually feel what is wrong. The aura broadcasts sickness, health, joy. What is that? Wouldn't you like to bottle it and take it home and analyze it, and you can't? The very institute that puts this event on, so interested in these energies, unseen energies that make a difference. What is it a reader reads, or a psychic feels, or a futurist can futurize? Where does it come from? Why is it so elusive? And I'm going to tell you in just a moment a little bit more about this. For it's the key to the future. A child would not know about the elegance of wisdom. How to put things together instead of tearing them apart. A child who is ego-driven, who is only waking up to being self-aware, is only going to do what the child does. The only equipment the child has in its very elementary way is going to lash out in certain ways and do certain things. And if you gave them a plate of wisdom, they'd look at it and they'd have no idea what it was and throw it away. This is all about to change. Because this unseen energy has attributes you don't know anything about, and you're discovering. First of all, everything about this unseen energy, which we call the quantum consciousness of humanity, is starting to enhance itself so that it'll be a little more obvious. If I took you to another civilization, like the Pleiadian, like the Orion, the Arcturian, if I took you to any of those, you would not recognize anything. First of all, they don't have technology. How about that? Because physical things that do things, they threw away long ago when they realized that the physics of human consciousness could do everything they ever wanted. That's where it's going. And you still wonder what it is. Truly, what is this? How does it work? Is it quantitative? If you have more of it, does it do more things? And the answer is no. Now, we have given you some hints about it. Human consciousness has no succinct definition I could give you that would make any sense at all. Because we have told you that less than 1%, 0.5% of humanity has to awaken in a certain way to affect the entire planet. Now that ought to tell you it's not quantitative. It's not 3D, is it? Less than 0.5%. If you really want to know the numbers, if you need the numbers, that ought to tell you something. It's not about how many of you there are, dear ones. It really isn't. Because there is something hiding here. There is a system, a confluence of systems that you don't know anything about. So let's talk about them. Now, this is not going to be understandable to all of you. That is why you're going to listen to this again if you choose, and others will put it in a time capsule if they choose, and these things may very well pop up later, and you'll go, oh. How do you explain the internet to somebody who's never seen a computer? Where do you begin? How do you explain the elegance of a race car to somebody who hasn't invented a wheel yet? And this is the issue. How do I tell you about what you have no concept of and you're not ready to know because you got to walk through the steps? So let me give you some building blocks and some metaphors. There's something called a wisdom barrier. The wisdom barrier is what we have described as what happens in human consciousness when certain attributes occur that are not quantitative. That is to say, it's not about how many. It's about other things that will occur within the physics of consciousness that you don't know yet anything about this system that must occur in a certain way. In a distributed way, not a centralized way, in order to break this barrier called the wisdom barrier. And when it is broken, what it tells us is that humanity has passed a point where it is in survival mode and goes to a mode that starts to build the wisdom of getting along. The wisdom that enhances the brains of all humanity to a point where they can agree on something that they never even knew before without actually having it taught. Did you hear that? Now, you didn't expect that. It surrounds the human being in such a way and the civilization in such a way that when you're born, it becomes second nature. The wisdom of getting along. It's called the wisdom barrier. Now let me tell you what's happening. You're there. And it's not going to give you fireworks or sparks in the sky. There's not going to be a celebration, and there's not going to be balloons. Except on my side of the veil. And there's all of those. Because you're there. You're looking into the very essence of it. You are peeking into what makes it work. You're about to push the envelope that will affect all humanity. Not just the light workers, not just the old souls. You're about to push a button on physics you didn't know existed. Now this is a biggie. The missing piece. How do I explain this? My partner, go very slow. Humanity explains things only from what they know, not what they don't know. Here's an example. You look into space, science looks into space, and they find attributes they cannot explain that do not seem to be Newtonian. But Newtonian physics is the gold standard of motion everywhere. And so the human being struggles to find formulas that will put the unexplained into Newtonian boxes. Welcome to dark matter. You're going to laugh later. We have told you this before, but this is the human propensity. Take what is known, observe what is unknown but there, and place it into the boxes of the known. Even if they're convoluted, even if they don't make sense, even if they're mysterious. Instead of looking and saying, maybe, just maybe, there are missing laws of physics we don't know about that would explain this and that and this and that. Well, let me tell you one of the biggest places that you're missing. The place of the physics of consciousness. Listen to me. How do you define consciousness? Well, it's developed through very special thought of humans and this and that. No, it isn't. Consciousness is physics, and you should get used to this. You are developing it through human thought, unaware that there are rules of consciousness, and it is a part of quantum physics. There are rules, there are postulates, there are beautiful, beautiful attributes of the physics of consciousness that are going to start to explain what's going to happen in the future, but you don't see it that way. The missing piece is the knowledge that you can track this, that you can plot it, you can create it, even outside of humanity. Did you know that? It's beautiful, because when I start to tell you some of the attributes of the physics of consciousness, you're going to go, oh. What are the attributes of physics? What do you know? The answer is actually very little, but what you do know, you experiment with, you create things. The very technology that you have that is so beautiful on this planet is brought to you by the knowledge of the physics that you know. And there's cause and reaction. You build this and this happens. You put together certain kinds of things, and through all of the principles and the rules that you understand and the 4 basic laws that you have out of 6, you know what they are and you're using them. Beautiful. Now, what if I told you that that same scenario exists in consciousness? There are laws of consciousness that are just like the laws of physics, in that there's causal, there's effect. But in a quantum world, they're not linear. And so they create certain kinds of things. The physics of consciousness, being quantum and not linear, creates attributes that are going to create the future of this planet. And now, my partner, it gets hard. Because I'm showing my partner things right now, and he can't verbalize this. So I'm going to say, do your best. He sees the emotion of it. And he goes, oh, if you knew the physics of consciousness, you can build a better world. It has attributes. First of all, it does not travel from place to place. It does not travel in a straight direction. It does not travel. Consciousness is not in one place going to another. Consciousness does not expand. It does not get bigger or smaller. Consciousness is. Consciousness of physics, just like attributes of physics, sit there ready to be enhanced or not based upon other laws around it. And when they're applied, then they all change. Consciousness. Let me tell you about a couple of them. One is called the benevolence factor. Did you know that as the physics of consciousness is explored and the wisdom factor is applied and the barrier is passed, what happens next is an exponential, understanding and application of the rules of consciousness that create a factor which generates benevolent action. Oh, that's convoluted, my partner. Can you say that better? Let me tell you this way. Right now on this planet, there's a struggle between forces. Because of the consciousness that you have developed here, and the rules that you have put in place through the physics of consciousness, there is an allowance right now of many things on this planet that we've never talked about. Is there evil on the planet? Yep. Are there entities dedicated to come in and mess with you? Yes. Is that shocking? And why is that? And why would that be? Because this test allows it. Because what you have created in the physics of consciousness and the rules that have applied and how you're using it allow it. But the next step past the wisdom barrier enhances those very patterns of consciousness that you're going to discover as part of physics that close the door. Did you get that? When the rules of physics are applied in certain situations, you can control what happens. It's the same in consciousness. When you reach a point of understanding the physics of consciousness, how it works, the mechanics of it, the distribution of it. Listen, I'm giving my partner something and he's going to say it, and it's not going to make sense to anything. The spiral delivery of it. Now that's going to make sense to somebody. You shut the door. And the things that have visited this planet can't anymore. And those places of darkness that would want to come in and play with your consciousness because it's at the teenage level of physics can't get in. That's the best explanation we have for what is going to happen in the future. And the Pleiadians are jumping up and down because they know what happened. It's almost an exponential evolution if you want it to be. One thing leads to another. It builds on itself. You don't have to start all over every single time you're born, like my partner described today. You come in with the factors that you learned before and build upon them. If I could use the term born wise, I would. And it's going to change everything. And then when the physics is revealed, you'll understand why there are machines that can work with consciousness. But you're not going to need them. Not long. How many generations are required, Kryon? I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you. The reason is I don't want to give you a setup that'll spoil the party. Because every single planet has had its own time cycle of the delivery of this through their own free choice. How does it work? How fast does it work? When will it start? It's already started. You are at the wisdom barrier. Once you are at the wisdom barrier, I would like to tell you that the track record of all the planets who have reached the wisdom barrier are the same. They all move forward. Every single one. You threw a switch. And no amount of dark energy can stop it. Oh, it'll try. I told you that before. Humans invested in old ways. Like the kids on the playground who don't want to grow up. They'll flail. They'll bully until their last breath. But they will awaken in a world, and they haven't got a chance to do it again. And this is what we're talking about. the benevolent factor, the wisdom barrier, these things start to work in the laws of the consciousness of physics in ways that you will indeed figure out, creating increased DNA percentage activation, creating a generation after generation, eventually, I won't tell you how long, of a human being who can create things out of nothing, who have control over physics, which is a lower kind of physics. The highest kind of physics is consciousness. And consciousness physics can control 3D physics any day. I'll wrap this up by telling you all of you are going to be there to see it. All of you. Every single one. Because that is the plan, old soul. You come back and you enter a world that you always wished you could have. Peace on earth? Oh, that's easy. That's the beginning. That's planting the seeds. That's a given. Look at your news. It's not going to look like it, is it? That's just today. Peace on earth. That's not the goal. Hardly. That's just a given. When you grow up and you're an adult, you stop throwing stones at each other on the playground. You stop. You have a more elegant idea. That's peace on earth. That's the beginning. The very beginning. And then it gets good. This is what we see. I've never said these things in this way. I wanted you to hear the full story. What would happen to a civilization that could create anything it wanted physically, was never hungry, who could live as long as they wanted to, could put themselves in a quantum state if they wanted to, who had different sets of ideas of the way things should work, who had no central control? Did you hear that? Have you ever heard of a managerless corporation? It's like that. And you would say, oh, that can't work. Oh, yes, it can. That's what you're headed for. Government decentralized to where there is none. There will be no such thing as world government, dear ones. Instead, there will be world consciousness agreement. You'll know better. How about that? What happens to a group of adults who go to a party for the first time and they've never met each other? What do? Throw rocks at each other? No, there's a consciousness of the party. They get together. They talk to each other. They have fun. What about a planet that had just that? They're born into a situation where they know better. That's the wisdom factor. That's the barrier you're crossing. It allows you to throw away any other system you ever thought you needed, especially the ones that organize you into groups to do things. It will be second nature. You'll all know together. Too good to be true? Ask a Pleiadian. Ask those from Orion. Ask those from Arcturus. Ask any planet of free choice. Because they're all looking at you right now. This room is filled with them. And they're nodding their heads and say, right on, right on, right on. You just wait. You'll be there.
So let us move into a brief meditation as we prepare for Kryon's channel at this beautiful event. And there really is nothing to do. It's simply about relaxing. And so I invite you to close your eyes and focus on your body. What is happening within the cells of your body in this moment? Bring that connection to your body. And then when you're feeling connected with the cells of your body, focus your awareness on the energy within your feet. And feel sense or imagine that connection that we share with the planet underneath us. Feel the energy of Gaia, our beautiful planet that is here in support of us, that is here in partnership with us. And as you feel and sense that energy of the planet in partnership with you, pull that energy up through your body and move that energy from your feet to your knees, your thighs, through your hips, your abdomen, your chest, your neck, your arms and hands. Allow that energy to travel up through your head and out the top of your head. And imagine that connection that you have out into the cosmos. Connecting in with the energy of the earth, the energy of the stars. And then as you feel that strengthen, that core energy within you strengthen, you may even sense a bubble moving out from you now. And as that bubble of connection expands, it's connecting with other bubbles that are sitting around you in this moment. And so all of our bubbles are connecting with one another. And that connection actually begins to amplify. And so just from sitting here, just from connecting with the energy of the earth and the energy of the stars, you are expanding your bubble beyond the physical body. And as we collect bubbles together, we're creating one big bubble. And if you visualize this room with this one big bubble, that's expanding out even further and connecting with every bubble that's within the hotel. And it is being amplified. And we keep sending out that bubble. That bubble is now moving beyond the hotel, beyond the city, beyond the state, beyond the country. It is now a bubble that encompasses the planet, our beautiful planet here in partnership. And with that bubble of connection, we are now in a beautiful place, postured to receive the loving messages from Kryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. Those who have not experienced the channeling before, I invite you to forget everything right now that might interrupt a thought that I'll give you. You are magnificent. All of you, everyone. Dropping all of the thoughts that are not that will put you into a state where you might receive this message in a way that otherwise you would not. There are always those who come to see what it's like and analyze it and look and miss the splendor that is here for you. We invite you to surround yourself in a surreal way with compassion and love that is there. That is your lineage. That is who you are. How many of those in the religious circles or the buildings that you would go to and worship would tell you that you are so worthy to look into the eyes of spirit and say, I know you. You are so worthy to be part of a bigger picture that no one has really told you about. But so many young people now are starting to wake up to.
What if there is something bigger than they were ever told about the Creator? What if you could wipe away all of the rules and all the doctrines and start over? And understand that you are born magnificent. And you go from there. Dear ones, right now in this planet, but especially in this country, in this room even, it's about realizing who you are and starting to peel the onion of duality and let all the other things slough off of you slowly as you understand there's a bigger reality, one you didn't expect. It reminds us so many times of the parable I've given and you've heard before of the master artist who looks at the block of granite and decides what to remove in order to create the masterpiece within. And that's who you are. We have said this, especially in these last 2 years, over and over, that you have new tools now. Even though you perhaps have been part of what you have called this new age for years and years, there are tools you didn't expect that enhance what you thought was there. And some of you are not even willing to see that because you're stuck with what you know. And that is part of what my partner is going to talk about today. I would like to talk briefly about 4 attributes of mastery. One has even been given today. This particular channeling, I know I will repeat. These are new things. Only recently have I given my partner these ideas. There's a profundity here of these attributes. Number 1, mastery has peaceful countenance and wisdom and understanding in the midst of turmoil. An attribute of mastery that says that no matter what is happening around you, you have the ability to not be part of it. You are there as part of it because you live in 3D. You're there with the family, perhaps is in dysfunction or being torn apart. You're there with a community who is recovering with all of the terrific things of horror that they perhaps have seen and didn't expect. And even they, among them, there are those who understand, peace, be still. And they can drop into their heart and in the midst of the turmoil and all of that which is around them, feel the love of God. A love which they own because they are part of it, not coming from the Creator, but coming from within. Dear ones, God resides in you as well as the skies you look above. It's part of the plan. Your soul is a creation of God, and you are in it. That's you. You're not apart from God. And it means that the elements of and attributes of mastery are yours. They're yours to create, understand, develop. Let all those things of duality slough away so you can see the mastery within and be able to do some of these things. And when you start doing them, you start to have better health. You start to live longer. You start to understand the elixir of youth. You start to understand the elixir of joy. And all the things that you perhaps have escaped you all your life become far more simple to achieve because you know who you are. That was number 1, the ability to stand peaceful countenance among all that surrounds you that's turmoil. Number 2 has already been mentioned. Mastery does not react. Mastery observes. And in the observation of what is going on, looks for compassionate action. That's a hard one. When somebody stands before you and they are upset, or they're saying that you're wrong, or asking you to change, or asking things that would seem like a criticism of you and your life, or how you see things, what's your reaction? Dear ones, the human being at the elemental level is designed for survival. And in a culture, it's not about survival and running from the Bengal tiger as much as it is keeping who you are intact. And when someone comes at you and questions that which you believe, or even worse, calls your names, the instant reaction is defense. Mastery does not react. Mastery observes. Imagine somebody coming up to you and doing something like that, and you do not react at all. And instead, you're observing somebody who perhaps is hurting, realizing right away that they're in trouble or they're upset, and it has nothing to do with you. But the words coming out of their mouth targeted at you because it's the best they can do to release that which is happening with them. And in that observation, you turn to compassion. And you don't defend, but instead you say to them, I love and respect you for all that you are. You don't apologize for not coming up to their standards. You just love them. How many of you are able to do that? That is mastery. Number 3, mastery surrounds itself with light all the time, no matter what. You surround yourself with light before you go to sleep. You surround yourself with light as you wake up, so that everywhere you walk, you push that light before you. And you don't react to things which are then dysfunctional. Surrounding yourself with light is the key to the other two, the first two. When you're always surrounded with that light of the Creator, which is yours to surround yourself with, well, it's yours to do it. You don't then react. And you're peaceful in turmoil. And you have that visualization that you're in a bubble and you're surrounded. And that then allows you to create things that come to you. And in that creation, you will see, are you really creating your own reality, or is it just an illusion? And you realize after many things start coming to you that you didn't expect, you say, I'm creating it, and you're right, because light attracts these things. That's mastery. Number 4, the last one. It's one to think about, and I've saved it to last. Mastery rejects, completely rejects, anything that would diminish another person. Any verbiage, any thoughts that would diminish another human being. That means that in a group that you're with, mastery would not then cooperate with gossip, would not feel empowered if they said another person is less than they are. Mastery rejects the idea of diminishing the majesty and the magnificence of any other human being on the planet. And that's something to think about, dear ones, because there are some who their whole lives revolve around diminishing others. And you know it, and you know what I'm talking about. Perhaps you're at a family gathering where that's going to happen, and then it starts happening and you don't join in. It's obviously you don't join in. And they'll look at you and they'll say, what do you think? At that moment in time, you choose your words carefully. And you say, well, I'm not bothered as much as you are. And I want to see the good in all things, and that's why I'm quiet. It doesn't mean that you're better than they are. You just have an idea that's different, and they may or may not accept it. But that very statement says to them, I'm not going to do it. Light is attractive to this. There will be those who will come to you and say, I want what you have. I've seen you work. I've seen with others. I've seen you work with perhaps the clients at work. And what do you have that I don't? And that's when you get to share what you found. And what you share is not a doctrine. It is not an evangelical truth that you've learned and studied and have a book. It's the pattern of your life that they're looking at. And they see love and they see compassion, and maybe they haven't seen it before in a human being, not a book. And that's why you're here. In the midst of all that is here and the turmoil that is here, you have chosen to sit in these chairs because you know there is something more. To understand that there is light. To start understanding, perhaps, how to achieve it and how to find that beautiful, magnificent statue inside of the block of granite. Perhaps it's the beginning of the rest of your life. I am crying in love with humanity. I'll be back. And so it is.